Robert Kuok, businessman, advisor to governments, and published author. The 94-year-old just penned his memoirs, a book that has set tongues wagging all over Malaysia. So who is he? Well, he was born in JB in 1923, which makes him older than Tun Mahathir. He controls businesses across Malaysia, Singapore and Hong Kong, including multi-billion-dollar stakes in Wilmar International, the world's largest palm oil trader, as well as Hong Kong real estate developer Kerry Properties and luxury hotel operator SHANGRI-LA Asia. So he's a major player. He's currently worth about $18 billion, about as much as the nominal GDP of countries like Cambodia and Iceland. So from the excerpts I've read on the South China Morning Post, I've gleaned these 6 key takeaways. Number 1, listen to your mum. Because beyond the obvious praise that Robert Kuok has for his mum, this insight emerges that while she was able to see China for all its vast potential, including its return to capitalism, she was also honest enough to warn the young Robert Kuok of corrupt and lazy bureaucrats, as well as her view that the ultimate goal of society should be true socialism, where man works for his fellow human beings selflessly. But Robert Kuok is right in saying that that stage is a long way off because mankind has only traveled the first few miles of a journey of 10,000 miles before it can become truly civilized. Number 2, never underestimate the contributions of hungry immigrant labor. For Robert Kuok's era, those people were the Chinese, who he described as the most amazing economic ants in the world. They, or we, cut the jungles of timber, planted a tapped rubber, opened tin mines, ran the small retail shops, created a new economy around all these fledgling businesses, thus building, over many, many years, Southeast Asia into the tiger economies that they are today. This ability to absorb adversity, of being able to eat bitterness, plus an inbuilt efficient and cost-conscious attitude, make the Chinese some of the best entrepreneurs in the world. I mean, look at this list. It's clear that the Chinese are economically dominant in Malaysia. And maybe it's not because of the policies in those countries, but in spite of them. As the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche was fond of saying, that which does not kill you only makes you stronger. So the next 50 years for Malaysia will also be about migrant labor, except that they will comprise the Nepalese, the Bangladeshis, the Burmese, and yes, maybe still the Chinese, so just watch them take off. Number 3, have a larger cause. And guess what? It's not about money. Because tell me, right? Why the hell would a 94-year-old man with $18 billion in his bank still work? Kuok says he does it because while China, the land of his parents and ancestors, remains behind, he won't rest while he can still contribute. Interesting, isn't it, that he doesn't mention Malaysia here, which brings me on to my next point of number 4, make hard decisions. Robert Kuok left Malaysia in 1974 when he felt that the government of Malaysia and Singapore was penalizing, not encouraging businessmen with high taxes. It was a very tough decision for him because Hong Kong was a much larger pond and therefore much more competitive. And this part of the book makes me think about the things that wealthy businessmen in Malaysia tell me sometimes, about how they put their assets and families abroad in developed countries like Singapore and Australia, but their businesses are still here in developing Malaysia. Number 5, the importance of growing talents and fangs in your business. Now this point is related to Malaysia's preferential policies and uneven treatment of people and companies, since many of these countries' biggest companies have been built on connections and cronyism. But will they survive in the real world, outside Malaysia? Will they have the scales, the talents, and the sharp fangs capable of taking on any adversary, to not become one of the 10,000 bleached skeletons of those who have failed? And I think even if you're not a businessman or millionaire, you know which companies in Malaysia fit the bill and which don't. Last point, number 6, the folly of race-based politics. Kuok said he made just one attempt to influence Malaysia's cause way back in 1975. He asked Tun Hussein On to consider redirecting the country away from race-based politics and what he saw as a rising tide of cronyism and favoritism into a society that was merit-based and not focused on race, religion, or color, so that the nation, Malaysia, and not one segment of society would benefit. Of course, now, as we know, Robert Kuok failed in his mission, and history now shows us the folly of such policies when you consider the levels of our currency, the levels of our foreign investment, investability, and competitiveness when compared to our neighbors. So as many of you know, releasing one's memoirs is all about timing, and one gets the sense that Robert Kuok cares less about the upcoming elections, like many people might say, than he is about his own mortality. Because at 94 years old, his era will soon be over. But Malaysia's still in its early stages. Do you get the feeling things will change? Especially after hearing Robert Kuok's comment? I didn't think so. Just saying.